Welcome back to the Wirex Podcast. I'm Lianna Adams, and today we're exploring a hot take you might not expect. Why a boring crypto market could actually be a good thing. Joining me is Gijs Weegh, CEO and founder of StablR, to talk about stablecoins, long-term growth, and why less hype could actually mean more progress. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Lianna. Happy to be here.
Thank you. We love to start off the show with your professional background, getting to know you, and a little bit about your journey. So, please tell us about your professional background.
Yes, I'm Gijs Weegh, probably the difficult name in this podcast up till now. I have been for 25 years in the fintech industry. I co-founded a payment company in '02, which we built out for almost 18 years before we sold it to a large Dutch bank. Then during that time, I got really interested in use cases of blockchain in the financial industry. So how blockchain could improve business transparency, even compliance, and we were within the banking industry. So I read a lot about it, looked at the various opportunities in that space, and then I think in 2020 I left the company and started to think about new things. That's at a certain point it came all together by seeing the opportunity for stablecoins, especially other than US denominated at that point, in the ecosystem, and also from a European perspective. That was the time I started thinking about founding StablR, a European stablecoin issuer fully compliant with the European MiCA laws. And from here, building that out into two different stablecoins, which is EUR, our euro-denominated stablecoin, and USDR, our USD stablecoin, and really building an ecosystem of stablecoins in the industry.
Wow, that's amazing. So, let's get down to it, right? Like, what do people mean, when they say that the crypto market is boring? What is boring to you?
Boring is good. I think most people always want to have quick profits, think about crypto as making insane profits in the lowest possible time frame. But that's not what it's about. The background is way bigger than quick wins and profits on projects. I think it's building an ecosystem which really can change the way we interact within the financial industry. So a boring market creates the foundation of something we need in the long run. So it's great that we have projects which are grow that quick that people can make a lot of money on a very short time frame in the industry. Great to do so. But I think if it's boring and it's growing, that's by far the most interesting way forward. And from that perspective, we are now at a point where we're at step 1 out of 1,000. We all think this industry has matured a lot, but we are only really in the beginning. And working in this industry, we see that many of the things we think of are so early stage that it will take probably a couple of years to really flourish and being built up to the potential it currently has.
I love what you said. Boring but growing, right? And that's such a great little term. And I think is about being is the sustainability, right, of it, in the long run. But do regular investors even understand that slow and steady could be a good thing, or do they just want quick wins all the time?
It's depending how you define investors. I think if you
Right.
look at VCs currently investing in the market, they understand that it could be rather slow and steady and profitable in the long run, so that you make a very decent return in 5 years' time, than a project going to the roof in 3 weeks and going down in 6 weeks' time again and going a bit up and down. And that's not what you from a professional investor side are looking at. However, if you look from a retail investor, it cannot be quick enough, because I think there are very little retail investors in the industry which have a horizon for longer than 1 year. That's of course what we have seen with Bitcoin. There are very little early stage Bitcoin investors who went through the wall right. Everybody took profits, and looking backwards, you should have kept it, of course, but that's not how it works, and how we normally invest in new industries, especially if there's so much unknown and such a risk related to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look back in hindsight, right? It is actually when you're going through something that is, and the decisions that you make at that time, that's what matters. And some people say a quiet market means crypto is dying. How would you respond to that?
I think a quiet market is not in any way related to a dying market. It's about the definition of crypto. If you have a very slow market, a quiet market for a long time in exotic altcoins and memcoins, that could be a signal that that market is dying. Like NFTs these days, that was something which was really, really hot 3 years ago, and that's now quiet for quite some time. Could be related to a dying market. At least it's not what people expected when they entered that market at that time frame. So yes, for those really exotic new projects, that's could be the case. But on overall on the bigger blockchain industry, and the potential of crypto in the full blown ecosystem, I think a slow market, a quiet market is something new things can be developed and optimized, and we are building what we are actually looking forward to.
Yeah, I used to say, like, during the quiet times, that's when you build, right? You don't build when things are, hyped up and noisy, so to speak. And I really love what you said about definitions, right? I think, many a times we may use the wrong definition, or we could mean something else. So yeah, I'm totally with you on how we need to define certain things, right? And if things are going well, why are some big companies and investors leaving the space?
I would actually have a question for you there, and that's who is leaving the space? I'm not aware of any serious big investor who is currently leaving the space.
Yes, I mean, like, that there's been word on the ground, like, big companies and some investors have lost, confidence and are just leaving the space. And I just wanted to, yeah, maybe just ask for your insights.
No, yeah, I think my insight is that I did not experience that at all. Especially if you look at the current situation in the US, which has become so crypto friendly, is that everybody sees nowadays the crypto opportunity and the blockchain opportunity, and tokenizing assets as an opportunity. So I see so many opportunities and people jumping in. It could also, uh, because my view is maybe a bit colored because I'm in stable coins, and my
Mm,
main look on the industry is from a stablecoin perspective, and I think stablecoin is overall one of the hottest topics economically around globally at this point. If you look at the IPO of Circle and all these kind of things happening in this industry, it's going very, very well from that perspective. And I see that a lot of interest from traditional players into the industry nowadays. I see big stakes are being made in the industry. So no, I don't see big companies leaving the space, and I'm thinking of where that could be.
I think perhaps maybe moving, like for example, like what you've just mentioned about, with the whole stable coins, maybe it's just shifting focus, perhaps, right? And do you think it's possible that the market isn't, building up to something big, or, do you think it's stuck, you know, on a broader scale, right? Because yeah, we know stable coins are picking up momentum, but in terms of like the overall market, what are your thoughts on that?
But to go back to the previous topic, it could indeed be that momentum is shifting to more, let's say, realistic opportunities for the long run, like stablecoins.
Mm.
On the other hand, we have seen for the first time ever that a US president launched a meme coin. So and the interest across all of the industry is still pretty big. And on all sides, I think it's good that there's so much energy around the space, because the opportunity which is created here is tremendous. And back to your question, is the market building up to something big or just stuck? In my opinion, it's definitely not stuck. As I said, maybe the NFT market is stuck, but the total, if you look at the total perspective of this market, is definitely not stuck, because we are just starting to tokenize real world assets. So,
Yeah.
and stablecoins is the first example there, but tokenized money market funds, we see projects of tokenized housing coming by. There's so much more to be done there in this space, that we will, in my opinion, we are building up to something really, really big. But we are, as I said before, only on the first step of it. So there's so much more to come. And I think what is built in this industry is so big. And we see, take for instance the example of money transfers these days. It's quite common nowadays to do a money transfer internationally, with some part of that being done in stablecoins. That's something you could not have think about it 2 years ago. But now every neobank in the space and wants to be related to stablecoins, wants to have access to stablecoins on and off ramping globally is becoming way more important. You see that on and off ramp companies globally raise a lot of funds. So that's one of the examples where it's building up to something big, and that will the international transfers is the first start, and that will grow to a tremendous amount, because that's a big market, and that will spread out locally more and more, and the impact of it is really big. So yeah, in my opinion, we are definitely building up to something really big in the industry, and payments is only one of the examples.
Yeah, and I suppose, if it's if should we compare it to like NFTs, um, I I guess, with stable coins, there's a bit more structure to it, whereas NFTs, at one point it was a bit of a, you know, kind of like cowboys, right? Like,
It was a hype.
pardon?
It was a hype, yeah, but that
Yeah, it was. It was.
we could
It
see
was.
that we are now in a boring market compared to what happened there, that everything went through the roof and NFTs. But if you closely look at NFTs from a tech perspective, and
Yeah.
what it does, is there quite an overlap between NFTs at that point and tokenized assets we work with
Mm.
today and we're redeveloping. So it's the hype of NFTs which goes by, which was pretty interesting, insane. And I hope some of that hype will somewhere come back and find a good way, because it was an interesting movement. But the real thinking about it, registering ownership on a blockchain, That's
Yeah.
something we are now doing with tokenizing real world assets, which at the end does the same, only from a complete different perspective. Both because it's not that hype related, and on the other hand, it's way more regulated.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like, what kinds of projects have you seen that is doing well when the market is low?
Of course, a bit on the on preaching from my own parochial here that stablecoins. What do stablecoins when markets are slow? I think stablecoins are perfect when markets are slow because if if markets are slow, people probably will sell some of their assets, will take the profit because they don't see any further growth in their opportunities which they have at that point, and the tokens they're holding. So they are looking for different ways to make money because at the end, that's a big part of the crypto industry in there. So if you have all kind of exotic altcoins which are stable value for 3 months in a slow market, there's a big chance people will start selling it because they don't see an upside anymore and they fear the risk of the prices going down. So they move more into stables. What should stable coins do there? Create an opportunity to replace the opportunity they had in the altcoins with a low risk opportunity to make some money with stablecoins. And I think there for us, what's really interesting from my perspective is the use cases which are presented within DeFi. So if you have DeFi lending pools, DeFi liquidity pools, which can make a decent yield for somebody who wants to stay in the industry and want to make some profit, I think that's a particular market which will do it really well when, on average, the crypto markets are slow and steady.
And would you say, that should be what startups and investors should be doing as well? Because when the market is slow, well, would you call that boring then? Would you call that the boring phase?
No, for me, it's not boring. I think
Okay. Yeah, because I'm still trying to get the definitions that you have. So excuse me, if I got the definition slightly off. So yeah, what should startups and investors be doing?
But I would give a very simple example of borrowing from a stablecoin perspective. Stablecoins are already connected to traditional finance and blockchain and yeah, our new industry. Let's call it the crypto industry. Uh, and if something is boring in the, let's say, crypto industry, that's the most exciting moment anybody can have in traditional finance. So if
Right.
you are boring, you go back to traditional finance because that's the boring part. That's 10 meetings a day about the same subject. If you are already in this industry, it will never be boring. It will only be sometimes a moment to reflect and take a step back and look back at the industry to keep on building in the right direction.
Gotcha. And so yeah, coming back to the question, about like the startups and investors, yeah, what should they be doing during this phase?
I think you mentioned as well before, building. It's good if markets are a bit slower, that you are not distracted by the momentum of trade and opportunity after opportunity passing by. If it's going a bit slower, let's call it boring, it's a great time to reflect. What are you actually building? Well, is the direction right? Is what you thought 3 months ago still there, or has it changed? This industry is so rapidly moving that you should reflect every 3 to 6 months completely on everything you're doing and still looking if you are in the right direction. If it's boring, people have more time. It's good to talk to clients, to talk to partners, to keep on the discussion alive, because I think as a startup, that's one of the most important things. And I think if you are an investor, these are actually the times to talk to a lot of startups in depth about their projects and potentially get in at a reasonable price, which probably if you're in the middle of a hype, people really think that everything goes up always. If the market
Mhm.
is slower, it's actually a good moment to really evaluate your position and look for the right quality and see what you could do there to invest.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, about reflecting, right? Like taking the time to reflect and to see if the direction that you're going is on track. I feel like, there's a lot of startups that don't really take the time to reflect, and they end up losing losing their whys, right?
Yeah, I think if I currently look at the amount of layer ones which are around,
Yeah.
and I think about the use cases for all these layer ones, I think that they all had a lot of funding, that they issued successfully their tokens, which they raised a lot of money with. But where's the focus? Where is the actual business case on there?
Hmm.
We are discussing many layer ones every day and evaluating them and discussing about what opportunities could we really bring and who can create momentum next to the obvious ones. Ethereum is Ethereum, that's good. Solana is Solana, that's also good. But there are so many ones, and I think now currently in stablecoins there are 5 or 6 layer ones coming up, only focusing on trading and swapping stablecoins to facilitate the payment market. That's quite a lot. And we are also really looking at which of these do have the right opportunity and what will be the future project. And that's related to reflection. Right? Who is going to be the next winner? Because you can only focus on a very few projects. And the project we want to focus on are, of course, the winners. So that's why we are reflecting almost on a daily basis all the projects we are working on.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's such great advice. And what's the biggest opportunity in crypto right now?
If I would look at the headlines, it definitely would be stablecoins. Because every day, you see big headlines about stablecoins popping up left and right. I have to say, especially with the US opening up, there are
Mhm.
big opportunities for stablecoins in a friendly environment. I think Europe is way more challenging because of the MiCA regime and the way it's now regulated in Europe. And the future's there, but that also creates a good market and a good opportunity for us. We have our collaboration with Tether. They do, let's say it globally, we do Europe, which works out great for the both of us. And then the stablecoin opportunities in the industry, if it is stablecoin swaps with FX, if it is payments, if it is remittance businesses, it's all very big and it's a fastly growing market. So probably the biggest opportunity now, because this one will be monetized in the next 10 years at least, and a lot of other
Mhm.
projects we still have to see what the future of it will be. I think my personal interest there is also how DeFi evolves there, because DeFi creates optimized markets for swaps, lendings, and that's actually something new which could really grow into the financial industry. So I have my personal focus is on the opportunity of DeFi for stablecoins, but on average, stablecoins is by far the biggest opportunity which is around today.
Yeah, I think so. And thanks for those little tips. And out of those opportunities, if you had to bet on one thing, one big trend for next year, what would that be? Where do you think this is going?
I would guess the upcoming market for 26 would be, from my perspective, because stablecoins
Mhm.
is the FX market. So currency trading with stablecoins. As I just mentioned,
Yeah.
We have 5 layer ones coming up in the space. We have payment companies moving to the space, neobanks moving to the space. We're all looking at transferring funds from A to B, especially on a global scale, but also swapping between currencies. And I think currency swapping with stablecoins will be one of the biggest opportunities in 2026, which really comes to life and will be built on.
Wow, that's amazing. And guys, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
Anything I want to add at this point? No, I think we covered all about the market, and I think we could have another discussion about the definition of crypto, because that's an interesting topic
Yeah.
as well. But no, I think we covered it all, and I'm very glad to be in this market, because I think together we are changing a big part of the financial industry, which is very
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, right now, it's a time to reimagine how we exist in this world, right? And that's, all industries, and yeah, everything has been just so insightful today. Thank you so much, guys. It's been great having you on. And really, thank you for sharing your take on why a quieter crypto market might actually be a good thing. It definitely looking at borrowing in a different way now.
That's good. That's good. I hope that this podcast wasn't boring for anybody. That's the most important thing. But a boring market is never a boring market, because, as I said, within the crypto ecosystem, the word boring does not exist.
Yeah, amazing. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. See you next time on the Wirex Podcast.